and welcome to Indus News. Live from Islamabad, I'm Naila Shuja, and these are the headlines. The UN and the U.S., among others, have called on the military to release Mali's transitional leadership. In a joint statement, they strongly condemned the attempted coup that took place following a cabinet reshuffle. Soldiers detained the president, prime minister, and defense minister of the interim government on Monday. Leaders have agreed on a set of sanctions against Belarus, including a ban on the use of the bloc's airspace. In a statement, diplomats called on the International Civil Aviation Organization to urgently probe the incident. Belarus also demanded the immediate release of a dissent journalist detained by Minsk after diverting a passenger plane. Daily COVID-19 infections in India have dipped under 200,000 for the first time in 40 days. The country also reported more than 3,500 deaths in the past 24 hours. Here in Pakistan, the virus has claimed 92 more lives and infected over 2,200 people overnight. Nationwide, the tally has risen to 20,400. Globally, there are 3.46 million fatalities and more than 167 million cases. In Peru, at least 14 people, including 2 children, have been killed by the Shining Path rebel group in a remote hamlet. The military says pamphlets encouraging Peruvians not to vote in the June 6th presidential election were found at the site. For more news and details, stay tuned. We'll be right back after a short break. Welcome back. The United Nations and the United States, among others, have called on the military to release Mali's transitional leadership. Soldiers detained the president, prime minister, and defense minister of the interim government on Monday. The development came after a cabinet reshuffle in which 2 members of a junta that seized power in August were replaced. The UN, African Union, European Union, and several others issued a joint statement. They said a delegation of the Economic Community of the West African states will visit Bamako to help resolve the attempted coup. The group said it rejects in advance any act imposed by coercion, including forced resignations. In a tweet, the UN mission to Mali called for an immediate and unconditional release of the detained leaders. EU leaders have agreed on a set of sanctions against Belarus, including a ban on the use of the bloc's airspace. In a statement, diplomats called on the International Civil Aviation Organization to urgently probe the incident. Brussels also demanded the immediate release of a dissent journalist detained by Minsk after diverting a passenger plane. European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen said Minsk's move is a threat to civil aviation safety. She said European airlines should not fly over Belarus.
Belarus used its control over its airspace in order to perpetrate a state hijacking. Therefore, the safety and security of flights through Belarus airspace can no longer be trusted, and the Council will adopt measures to ban overflights of the EU airspace and deny access to EU airports to Belarus airplanes.
The White House says U.S. National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan held a phone call with exiled Belarus opposition leader Svetlana Tishkhan-Oskaya. In a statement, it said Sullivan assured the opposition leader that the U.S. will hold Belarus accountable for its actions. Now moving on, Latvia says it has expelled Belarusian diplomats in a tit-for-tat move. Latvia's foreign ministry says the diplomats can only return when bilateral relationship gets back to normal. The ministry said Minsk asked Latvia's ambassador to leave Belarus within 24 hours, while other diplomats are given 48 hours. In a statement, it said only one administrative staff member is allowed to remain at the Latvian embassy in Minsk. The rift started after Latvia replaced Belarus's national flag with an opposition flag at an ice hockey tournament. Riga's action was apparently aimed at expressing solidarity after Minsk arrested a dissenting journalist. Belarus said Latvia's move amounted to an act of international vandalism, and it called on Riga to apologize and return the state flag. India's daily COVID-19 cases have dipped under 200,000 for the first time in 40 days. The country reported more than 3,500 deaths over the past 24 hours. Globally, there are over 3.46 million fatalities and more than 167 million cases. More in this report. Although India has seen relief in the numbers of daily infections, many issues remain. Experts warn that 140 million migrant workers are at risk of being left out of the vaccination program, despite being at high risks of illness. Analysts say the fatality rate in major cities is much higher than the national average. In Delhi, the deaths rate topped 2.54% in the first 3 weeks of May, compared to the national average, which stood at 1.14%. In the second wave of coronavirus, India's rural areas have been the worst affected.
The state government has deployed the healthcare in charge of the village to primary healthcare center of slightly bigger towns. There are neither nurses nor doctors here for months. The rule is that they have to come at least twice a week to the center, but they don't even come twice a year.
The U.S. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention says about 39% of the American population is fully vaccinated against COVID-19. The situation in South America is not so promising. According to a survey, 1 in 5 Brazilian cities reported a shortage of vaccine doses last week. This too when the country's death toll is approaching 450,000. Over in Mexico, a large majority of the country is still waiting for the first dose of the COVID-19 vaccine. Hundreds of teachers, parents, and students protested against the government plans to reopen schools in such a scenario.
Accelerate the vaccination program before there is a return to physical classes. We believe that given the conditions we are going through, the program is very slow. At this time, not even 20% of the population is vaccinated. And given the terrible conditions of the schools we attend, it's very hard to return to the classes.
Malta has become the first EU country to vaccinate up to 70% of the adult population with at least one jab. Meanwhile, in Asia, Taiwan has recorded 6 new deaths from COVID-19 for the second day in a row. Malaysia reported 61 deaths, its highest daily toll since the pandemic began. Sri Lanka has extended its ongoing travel ban for another 2 weeks as health experts warn of a possible breakdown of the country's health system. In Pakistan, 92 people have lost their lives due to coronavirus in the past 24 hours. The health ministry says the death toll has risen to 20,400. They said the virus has infected over 2,200 people overnight. Officials say more than 905,000 people have been infected so far, of which 823,000 people have recovered. There are over 62,000 active cases in the country. More than 4,700 patients are in critical condition. Meanwhile, Pakistan has developed a coronavirus vaccine with the help of Chinese experts. In a tweet, a special assistant to the Prime Minister on Health said the vaccine, named POST-BREXIT, passed rigorous testing. Australia says it will close its embassy in Afghanistan on the 28th of May due to security fears. Prime Minister Scott Morrison said the move is in light of the international military withdrawal from Afghanistan. Morrison said the drawdown brings it with an increasingly uncertain situation environment. It said the government has been advised that security arrangements could not be provided to support diplomatic presence. The Australian Prime Minister said the embassy will reopen in Afghanistan when circumstances permit. The security situation remains highly volatile as Afghan forces and the Taliban continue to fight amid foreign withdrawal. In Peru, at least 14 people, including 2 children, have been killed by the Shining Path rebel group in a remote hamlet. This comes ahead of the country's presidential election on the 6th of June. The military says pamphlets encouraging Peruvians not to vote were found at the site. In a statement, they termed the incident an act of genocide, saying the rebels labeled such acts as a form of social cleansing. However, the statement assured Peruvians of a secure electoral process. The incident took place in a mountainous region where 75% of cocaine is produced in the South American country. In Myanmar, anti-coup activists continue their calls for democracy despite violent crackdowns and arbitrary arrests. In Monywa, locals marched on the Full Moon Day festival in Khasan in defiance of the military regime. A flash mob protest took place in Yangon, where the junta has imposed martial law. Witnesses say a bridge has been blown up in Hopin Township of Kachin State, making the road inaccessible. Earlier, an American editor was detained in Yangon while boarding a flight to Malaysia. Danny Fenster News Organization says he has been transferred to Yangon's Insin prison. An advocacy group says the military has killed 824 people since the coup. Pakistan's Prime Minister Imran Khan has reaffirmed his country's commitment to the completion of CPEC project. Khan said this during a meeting with China's ambassador Nong Rong in Islamabad. The Prime Minister's office said the two sides discussed vaccine cooperation during the meeting. It added that the premier hailed the Chinese leadership and reiterated Islamabad's resolve to bolster ties with Beijing. Ambassador Rong reassured that China will continue to support Pakistan in its fight against the COVID-19 pandemic. He added that Beijing accords high priority to help address Pakistan's requirements. In India, police have served notice at Twitter's offices seeking information for a complaint about a post. Delhi police say they are investigating the classification of a BJP spokesperson's tweet as manipulated media. In a statement, police said the response by Twitter India managing director has been very ambiguous. Last week, leaders of BJP shared portions of a document on Twitter that they said was created by Congress. The opposition party complained to Twitter, saying the document was fake. The U.S. company marked some of the posts, including one by Sambit Patra, as manipulated media. Under Twitter's rules, a post is tagged as manipulative media if it includes deceptively altered videos or images. It's now time for a short break. Stay with us. Welcome back. Brazilians obsessed with the renowned New York City Police Department have refurbished their vehicles to impersonate their idols. Details in this report. Pedestrians may need a moment to get their bearings as they witness an NYPD motorcade passing in Brazil's biggest city. Behind the swirling red lights and blaring sirens are a group of Brazilian fans obsessed with one of the world's most recognizable police forces. Inspired by the TV cop shows like Law and Order, it's their hobby to refurbish NYPD cars and wear their uniform.
It really gets people's attention. Many associate it with movies. Some don't understand what this car is doing here.
Impersonating a police officer is a crime in Brazil and many other countries. However, the group says they are getting away with it as they are not impersonating the Brazilian police.
Sometimes there is confusion with the vehicles. People think it is a real vehicle that is patrolling the streets of Sao Paulo or is helping the local police in a specific operation.
Brazil has a history of crimes involving police impersonation, including a 2019 heist. Investigators say robbers used the federal police livery to enter an airport and steal $40 million worth of gold and other metals. And in Italy, the snowy slopes are busy as skiing resorts have finally opened after more than a year's closure. Details in this report.
These skiers on the slopes of Passo del Tonale are very happy as they are finally able to glide in the snow. The country's ski resorts had been closed since the outbreak of coronavirus in February 2020. The government promised several reopening schedules, but they were later cancelled at the last minute. 6 resorts were initially expected to reopen in February, but the all-amateur skiing was once again shut down until March.
It's okay. We are outside. If the situation next year is similar, it will be necessary to think of solutions for the gatherings on the cable cars. But with a little education from everyone, I think we can do it.
Though there is not much time left for the skiing season as the temperatures rise, still many enthusiasts are overjoyed to be back on their skis.
It is a strange feeling because we are now in the warm season. We are in spring. but we go to the slopes. At night it snows and in the morning there are perfect weather conditions. I must say that I'm very happy to be able to ski these days.
The country has been relaxing the coronavirus restrictions slowly, with indoor dining expected to restart in mid-June.
The EU says tensions with the UK stem from Brexit and not the Northern Ireland Protocol. In a briefing, EU Chief Ursula von der Leyen, there is no alternative to the full and correct implementation of the protocol. Lynn said implementation of the protocol is the only solution to ensure peace in Northern Ireland. She added that the mechanism is critical for protecting the integrity of the bloc's single market. The protocol designed to protect the peace process by avoiding a hard border for Ireland. It has angered unionists by effectively creating a barrier between Great Britain and Northern Ireland. This ties the region to a range of EU customs and regulatory rules. Asian stock markets are trading higher following overnight gains on Wall Street as inflation fears ease, boosting investor sentiment. Stocks in mainland China are leading the gains, jumping over 2%. Hong Kong's Hang Seng Index has added over 1.5%. The ASX 200 in Australia has ascended nearly 1%. Meanwhile, Japan's Nikkei 225 and Seoul's Kospi have also risen over 0.5%. It's now time to take a look at the weather updates from around the world. For the latest news updates, you can follow us on our social media at indus.news.